Good evening and welcome to episode 7 of the Eve Prosper Market Show. I'm your host, Lockefox, and I'm here to talk about the Rhea release. First, before we get started, like we usually do, I'm going to talk some show news. First, as I've been teasing for weeks and weeks now, kill data is just over the horizon. I have the scripts running, but they are extremely slow, so got to get them tweaked so that we can actually present week over week data, because right now it would take me like 2 weeks to pull 1 week worth of data, which is just not okay. And then the other thing I want to cover is I just released on the blog a review of the ISBoxer bans. And go ahead and read it and comment. It was sitting in my edit queue for quite a while, and I finally got it out. So I also am going to put together something about teams, since they are they're due to be retired, and I wanted to put some words like Neville Smith put together from Eve Uni. So that's coming up. So let's get on to the show. We're going to start with the news. First, there was a new 07 show out this week, just this afternoon. I unfortunately missed it, but the bullets I caught from my corpies was that the next few release names have been teased, and there's a teaser about some new ships that might be coming around FanFest. And just some general sort of Eve. It's just some general Eve pimping sort of PR stuff, as far as I could tell. The other big piece of news, if you've been living under a rock, is Rhea launched. And if you didn't see it, you should go to hydrostaticpodcast.com. We did an entire follow-up to our lore episode there, answering questions that didn't get answered on the show, which rolled out during the downtime. And so that was actually a really cool blog series. And I know Fi and Ash worked really hard to put that together. So go give them some love. Also, the giant news is Thera is out. And the other good news about that is there are tons of wormhole connections to get into Thera. So get your ass to Thera for sure. Also, there's a crest feed for it, which I was worried about in the run-up to the release, but it was enabled. So nothing to worry about. We'll be able to present data about Thera on this show in about, unfortunately, 60 days, because I need that much data to feed the model tools I have, or else I just can't. It doesn't work automatically without 60 days worth of data. The other big piece of news was that, and this isn't really news per se, but cache scraping is now a thing of the past. Historically, to feed tools like Eve Central and Eve Market Data Relay and Eve Market Data and all of those other tools, you needed to run a cache scraper, which CCP has always been sort of, we won't ban you for it because we know you guys need it, but they've always sort of given a leery eye. And I know there have been some devs who became extremely close to cutting it out and telling everyone to just get bent. And so now we actually have a real solution. It uses authenticated crest. You won't be using it to feed your spreadsheets, but Eve Central is already using it. I don't know who else is. I don't know if Eve Market Data is doing it as well yet, but at the very least, Eve Central is up to date and live, and we're good there. And between that market feed and ISBoxer getting banned, we have shrunk the amount of EULA gray space to operate in, where CCP had been sort of hand-wavy, like, yeah, we won't ban you, but we're never really going to give you a thumbs up. A lot of that space has really dried up, and I'm glad to see it. Next in the news, CCP Grayscale is leaving CCP, and I wouldn't make this market news per se, but he has done so much to the game and its features. You really can't speculate on the market without talking about Grayscale and his hints or lack thereof. I was trying to find all the things he contributed to, but I only got a small list. He was rather pivotal in Dominion Sov rollout, which is the Sov system we have today. He also was rather pivotal in putting together the new Crime Watch system, which I adore, because there's nothing worse than trying to PvP when you have no idea what's going on or why things are shooting you. So, and then the last one I remember seeing from him was he did a lot of the retweaking of BPOs in Creus, which had to be an enormous undertaking. I think he did a pretty good job, except for the fact that I don't think they balanced the time factor as much as I wanted. But as far as the new system, he was pretty important in making it go. So he will be missed among the vets for sure. And Walrus9 is saying he nuked Technetium, and I give that credit to Fozzie more than Grayscale, but they may have worked together, or I might be wrong. So the next thing is one of my favorite devs. I don't want to say my very favorite dev because I want to keep that box open. CCP Quant came back from the dead. I thought that he had left CCP when Dr. Egio left CCP. But it seems he's still there, alive and kicking, and he went ahead and put out this graph on his Twitter feed, CCP_Quant, talking about the training rates for the various destroyers, and with the announcement of the Confessor, Amara destroyer training is way up. So I thought this was a cool graph. He talks about how he made it on Reddit, and I'm glad to see him back. I'm hoping that we see more reporting from CCP on the efficacy of their changes, more so than just we're changing things and isn't going to be amazing, hype. So I'm looking forward to a little more reflection from our devs. So with that being the news, let's move on to PLEX. PLEX, again, as we said for the last few weeks, has been on a bit of a roller coaster. We saw it hit a billion-isk before Thanksgiving, and then the IS Boxer changes hit on top of Black Friday sales, dropping it down to the below 850 million-isk. It has since recovered and moved up some, but as of today, there's a new Amazon sale, which has been pushing the price even lower. So I don't have the snapshot here in today's graph, but we should be under 850 at the moment. And again, it's a great time to buy. The rule of thumb when it comes to PLEX is that if it's on sale, it's worth buying either out of game or in game, whichever means suits you. As I've been saying for a while, I expect it to continue on the line fit over the last year. I expect to see a billion-isk by the start of February. I expect to have a billion-isk at FanFest when it comes to PLEX. It's going to be a tumultuous time to buy PLEX, just so you know, because there can still be more sales pushing the price even lower down to about 800. I don't think we'll go much below 800, and you'll end up having to hold it for a while before it comes back up to 900. But it's a time to buy. It's a time to buy. It's a time to hold. Get it if this is your speculation thing. And now we'll talk about minerals. Titania, a lot of the minerals stayed relatively flat this last week. We saw a big spike with the IS Boxer changes, meaning that it's harder to run large automated mining fleets. And we see a little bit of deflation here because the bans aren't in effect yet. I don't expect there to be another reset this hot, but I expect it to move back up towards, get back on a upward trend come the new year. If you see some reasonable dips down to the 6.0 level or the 6.1 level, absolutely go buy it. If you're into Tech 1 industry, now would be a great time to stockpile. And if you're in Tech 1 industry, I wouldn't be building anything right now because I think your margins are all shot. Pyrite is rather interesting in that we saw a big spike and then we saw this huge deflation back to roughly where we started, and then another giant spike. I'm having a hard time picking out if this is real or not. I do sort of expect this 1175 level to be the new normal. I do like this 15-day trend here, but I don't know what the price is doing. So if you need pyrite, I would wait to buy. Just see if this will wash out. I expect the volatility to be washed out by the weekend, so try to buy on Sunday or Monday. Mexilon wasn't really affected by the changes. It's up slightly, but I don't think it's enough to draw a trend line about. We see that it's rather strongly in the middle of our strength index, so I don't feel strongly one way or another about Mex. Isogen is also up, but is flagging that it's going to fall down a little bit. I like it at this 120 level personally, but we'll see where Isogen goes. It's on one of the higher ends of materials, and I expect the higher end minerals to go back to their deflationary trends sooner rather than later. Noxium is still up, is still trending up. I think this is also short-lived. I think we're coming back down again. If you have Nox, go ahead and sell it. If you need Nox, I never thought it accounted for very much of my Tech 1 building, but I would hold off buying it if I were in the market. Zydrine is down big. It did a huge spike, which I thought was uncharacteristic, and it's coming back down. I expect it to settle back to this 430 level again. And because the high-end minerals are just in such a glut in nullsec that even with the IS Boxer changes, we're going to be oversupplied by them. So I don't think I wouldn't be speculating in Zydrine or Megasite. Megasite is also back on its deflationary trend. I still think it's worth 750 or less. So I think it's overvalued. If you have Megasite, if you mine high-end minerals, now is the time to cash out and get out, because I think the price is way too high. And then Morphite, the one that I hate speculating on because I'm always wrong, has stayed flat most of the week. I don't like speculating on Morphite because I never know which way it's going to go. I still think the volumes are a bit low since Phoebe. I expect more Tech 2 consumption than this, but I don't know what's driving that. Moving on to fuel. We'll start with nitrogen isotopes. So the story here was that in Phoebe we saw a spike where there was a whole speculative ramp up where people were hoarding it, and then the bubble burst with Phoebe and the prices collapsed. And we see the prices come back up again, and I think these prices are a bit high, but it might be there was a lot of flagging in POS equipment this last week, so this might be some amount of newbies getting into industry altogether. It's kind of a bit weird. Caldari fuel blocks are relatively flat. They're down a little bit compared to where they were. I expect them to come down a little bit further but not by much. Oxygen isotopes took a big dump this week. They've been on the same downward slope, but I think this latest drop down below 750 is artificial. I think it needs to be around 775 personally. We can see the strength index is really low, and the volumes have been pretty low. I think I would like to see a couple more days worth of data before I made any bigger trends. As oxygen goes lower, we should see lower Tech 2 component prices. So if you're in Tech 2, I'd be sort of hoping that oxygen keeps falling. But we'll see. I think that this dump is a little bit low, and we should see some rebounding. I'm not exactly sure what's going on this last week. Galente fuel blocks also came down rather sharply, but are rebounding again. So again, keep an eye on them. They're worth watching as a bellwether. I don't think they can go much lower, but if they do, then expect Advanced Materials to follow suit about a week behind. Helium isotopes, which go into Amar towers, were relatively flat over the week. They're still in pretty weak territory strength-wise, and I did expect, after seeing one of the flags that we're going to talk about later, that we would have seen a price spike in at least the fuel, but everything stayed really flat. So I don't know what's going on here. Prices are up slightly, so if you're in the fuel block market, you might want to go and look at the margins on Amar fuel and make a quick buck. But again, the prices are pretty low. Strength is really weak. It's not a great place to be trying to spend a lot of time holding material in. Hydrogen goes into Minmatar towers, and it's stayed reasonably flat. It's fallen a little bit. Again, I don't think there's much to talk about here, but the Minmatar fuel blocks took a huge spike. So I don't know who's driving this, but if you've got Minmatar fuel blocks, sell them. If you can build Minmatar fuel blocks, go look into selling them, because, oh my gosh, this is a huge spike. Moving on, we'll go talk about some of the outliers that flagged. I don't think I did a very good job in my last show identifying outliers, and I really should have given some better speculation advice, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's talk with ferrite carbide to start. This one I found interesting because of this high this high spike right here. It turns out that was actually mostly artificial. This data is about a day old, unfortunately, and I'm watching this one because I'm speculating in it personally. I kind of expected it to do a bit more jumping high, but I might have bet wrong. Might as well put my money where my mouth is. Cesium was another interesting one. I think it dumped real hard. I think this is outrageously low, and I don't know what's going on. If somebody just liquidated a huge backstock, if somebody stopped buying it out to fuel towers, like, this is extremely weird. So I'd expect phenolic composites to come do this dip as well, and I expect the price to come right back. I expect it to be right back at 5,000 in a day or two. But I expect this dip to also show up in phenolic composites next week. So this would be a good chance to go buy cesium if you're willing to go speculate in the moon goo market, which I'm not a huge fan of. Or watch for the dip in phenolic composites. I don't know why I want to mispronounce that. Phenolic composites to show up sometime in the next week. So buy a bunch when it falls down. It should recover. I don't think it's going to come all the way back, so I expect it to do one of these where it goes down, comes up, not as high as it was before, but still there's delta there to make money off of. So like this buck here where you came down, but then you came back up, but it wasn't as high as before. So that's what I expect. Nanotransistors are also being hilarious. I brought them up last week because of this spike I thought was weird, and I thought that was going to come back down. And then it spiked again, which is like, what the crap? We are way in overbought territory. I think this price is outrageous. Do not buy nanotransistors at this price. Sell them if you've got them, but do not buy way up here above 2600. This is freaking silly. Especially with the Galente fuel falling as far down as it has. This is not real. This is a bubble. Don't fall for it. Another interesting raw material I saw was enriched uranium is on the way up. And I bring this up because in Phoebe they changed a bunch of the rules about trial accounts. Mainly that the trial accounts can now run PI colonies. And so what I expected this to do was drive down the price of the low-end PI materials. And yet, we keep seeing the prices go up. I think this is rather weird. I think if you're in PI, absolutely make money while you can. There's a lot of stuff spiking over the last week. So keep a close eye. I've been tracking I've added PI to the forced tracking list. So after this show, you can go look at all of the plots and see where your PI item is falling. But I thought the enriched uranium graph was interesting. It still shows signals that it's going up. If you can get more than 8,000 for your enriched uranium, sell. Also, I think this might drive up. This has a small upward pressure on fuel, but really the bulk of fuel is driven by robotics and isotopes, neither of which are spiking up. So I don't expect this to wash out that badly. The other material group, the last material group we'll talk about in the show today is the Tech 3 materials. So I have graphene nanoribbons up on the screen, and we see this ramp up as we go from Phoebe to Thera, Phoebe to Rhea, where we saw this great speculative run up while people were trying to get prepared for the Confessor to come out, which, again, is amazing. If you can get yourself a Confessor, absolutely do it. Don't spend more than like 100 million on it, but get yourself a Confessor if you can. We saw that we hit Rhea, and the prices quickly dropped, and there's a fistful of other items just like these graphene nanoribbons that did exactly the same thing. Scandium metallofluorine, metallofluorine. That's a mouthful. Did a similar thing where we did this huge run up during all of the hype for Rhea, and then it popped. Again, things are just kind of what they are. I think that there was a little bit too much hype for what the Confessor is actually going to use. But the other thing you should get your hands on are the new hull sections, because not only will those be useful for Confessors, because the way Tech 3 production works, they can be used with any race. So if you can go get your hands on, either you can explore and get them yourself, or you can get them through some speculation, the intact section specifically, you could be prepared to do the next Tech 3 destroyer when it launches. That's another option out there. Right now, Confessors are hot. If you can get your hands on one, absolutely do it. Sell those things while the heat is hot. I expect them to come down in price rather quickly. I expect them to be at the about 100 million ISK mark starting in the next 10 days, 14 days. But they're going to be popular. They're going to be hard to get to market, but I expect the heat to come off of it rather quickly, and I expect us to be sub 100 million after the new year, which would be great because I really want to see these things out in the wild because they are a blast to fly. Another interesting trend that came up in the data this week is drugs are up. Improved drop, standard mind flood, a few other drugs all had high runs in their sales lately, and the volumes are rather healthy, healthier than usual. I love drugs. I think they're one of the coolest pieces of the game. They're amazingly fun to produce. They are a really deep piece of the game, and I would love to see more boosters out there. It's just an enormous pain in the ass to sell them. So if you are in the drug trade, this is great news. There's a lot of volume going around. I don't know who's driving it. And I encourage anyone who does small fleet work and low sec work or anything that's not the 400-man F1 fleets, go buy some drugs. And again, there's a soundboard clip on hydrostatic where I say truckloads of drugs. So it's one of my notification sounds. An interesting one, just because it's usually so steady and it took a big dump, is charred microcircuits. If you have the opportunity to get these things for less than 140, go pick them up. Because I expect them to rebound back to this 158 line pretty quickly. This data might be too old though, so this trend we may have missed the boat here. Another one I found interesting, which I should have flagged last week, and I don't know why it didn't show up, is the Basilisk is extremely popular lately. I don't know who switched their doctrine to basilisks, but I sure appreciate it. If you're in the production game, now would be a great time to sell some basilisks. They're amazingly high. They're gonna come back down unless the pressure stays up. I'm not a huge fan of them in PvP. I think they're great for incursions, but again, follow the demand, make the money. This is a great production opportunity. Another one I found funny was the Tristan has been spiky lately. So this first spike we expect because of the low-end materials. I think it spiked way higher than the materials did, but that's just the market. This latest spike corresponds again to the pyrite spike. And again, I think this is way too high. I think the price of Tristan is a bit high. This might be a good opportunity if you are building Tech 1. This might be a spot to go do it. It also may have been that this is a reset when somebody bought out the whole freaking market. Another interesting trend that came out of it, and I got to thank my Corpy, Vala, can't pronounce his last name, and Calagon, that's his last name, mentioned that a bunch of the POS equipment was spiking that he was looking at. So I went ahead and forced the analysis in the tools, and there were two sets of POS equipment that were really driving the trend. First was Amar towers, which I think were used to do the head invasion that PL was trying to do against Brave and failed. So things like Amar control towers and laser batteries and large hybrid turrets, like all of those offensive modules were, and some of the defensive ones were pretty popular. And then there was another spike, which I don't have here because I thought I couldn't find a good item that really exemplified the trend, where a lot of the build modules were spiking in price. Now, the volume on build arrays is extremely low, so I don't really want to make a habit of highlighting them as a trade opportunity. But like advanced small ship assembly arrays were spiking because those are where you have to build confessors, and drone labs were spiking, and regular small ship assembly arrays were spiking, design labs were spiking, experimental labs were spiking. Like everything you'd want to put in a industry POS was spiking. And I don't know what the deal is with all of the industry equipment reasonably being so hot, because it sounds like there's some focused group driving it, but I don't think anyone is doing that much stuff solo, so it's just weird, and that's what I report here are the weird market things. So take that for what it's worth. Amar control towers should be back to their normal levels pretty shortly, and I think this drove a little bit of spike in the highest end PI, but yeah, this is Amar control towers. The next series of graphs are my apology to the show because of I should have given a better speculation report to you guys. They all sort of fall into the thing when it comes to pre-Rhea speculation, and I really should have done a better job reporting these. And the overarching thing you can talk about is that 1, it's the Confessor, 2, it's Thera, and 3, it's the Shattered Wormholes. That's what's really driving all of these next items. So what I have up on the screen is the high-grade Slave Delta, and also I had the mid-grade Slave Omega also spiked. These are essential for doing the really stupidly fast ships, and as I want to say CCP Prism was showing off, it's either Prism or Manifest, was showing off that the Confessor, under the right circumstances and fits, can just go absurdly fast. Like he was showing 41k with all of the boosts, and it was just freaking silly. I do expect anything you'd put on the Confessor to spike up. So that's small Tech 2 lasers, both the pulse lasers and the beam lasers. It's worth also noting that the smaller grade small lasers might also be worth doing. It's very tight on CPU, and it's not very good on capacitors, so it might be worth running more of them with lighter guns in a fleet. So those are my speculations that haven't come true yet. The next one I have up is the meta version of the 1 meganewton micro warp drive. Again, this has been on the rise, approaching Rhea, and I expect it to still have a little bit of momentum in it. If you have a stockpile of these, if you're the mission running type, this would be a great opportunity to sell a bunch of them. I expect things to stay relatively stable and sort of eke down again because the supply of these things is just freaking silly. Another piece that I talked about in last week's show was that all of the other pirate small ships should be on their way down with the Confessor coming out. The Confessor is going to be a very popular solo small ship, and that means things like the Worm and the Daredevil, the Garmer, I think is the smallest one. I can never remember that one. All of those small, kitey ships are going to have wind taken out of their sails. I don't know how permanent this is going to be, so invest at your own risk. I do expect them to do a dip down to a point. I expect them to go too low and then come back when people realize that the Confessor isn't the be-all, end-all, and they'll come back to their favorite ships. I don't know where that bottom is for any of these items, so keep an eye out. Speculate if you're the kind who speculates. I won't be able to tell you the truth about it until much closer to the actual bottom. Another well-duh item is the Sisters Core Probe Launcher. A lot of the Sisters equipment spiked high because everyone was trying to get to Thera. We saw that it spiked a couple weeks ago, and I think this may have been a little too hot on the speculation. But the ramp has been high, and I really should have highlighted this last week because, again, this is a well-duh. How else are you going to get to Thera? What are you going to put on your ship that's exploration? What are you going to put on your Astero or your the bigger one? I'm so bad at names right now. Stratios. To go get to Thera. What else are you going to do when you have to probe out all of those wormholes and sites and go looking for fights? Of course, you're going to have sisters equipment to go do it. So that one's a mea culpa. I should have highlighted this last week. Yeah. The next one, which was interesting to see, was Salvager 2's spiked pretty hard. Again, I think this has to do with the exploration group. I think this has to do with, again, speculating in Thera, getting the equipment there. I think that we'll see the prices come back down again. I don't think that high is as high as it should be. But again, I should have highlighted this last week. It would have been a great opportunity to make a lot of money. Mobile depots is another one that Ashtarothi had pointed out to me, and I had dismissed it. So again, I am bad at this. These are going to be most important for the shattered wormholes. The reason being that you can't anchor a POS in the new wormhole spaces, both in Thera and the shattered wormholes. So if you want to set up a base, if you want to do anything that requires more than just a quick day trip, mobile depots are going to be an important part of your strategic operations. So I really should have highlighted this. It's well done in retrospect. I'll see if I can do better on the next patch, because this was, I feel really embarrassed for not picking this one out. Even though we've already been doing a bit of prediction review, I do have the Astero I highlighted last week. I said that I thought that we were at the top of the run, and then Rhea launched and it popped up again because it's a popular exploration ship. Again, I should have given better advice. That was my bad. A bad prediction on my part. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Again, I still have this teaser thing that I haven't finished working on, and work is rather hot this time of year, so bear with me on this. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Thanks to everyone who tuned in live on Twitch at HLib Industry. The show is live every Friday night, 0300. That's Thursday night U.S. time. You can catch this the next day on YouTube at youtube.com/EveProsper. I invite you to check out the blog as well at eve-prosper.blogspot.com. I just put up a new article there about ISBoxer, and I will have another article out sometime in the next week about the team's retirement. I know that there have been requests to do show notes there, but I am really strapped for time in producing the actual video part of the show, doing a write-up as well as another 2 or 3 hours I just don't have to give. You can catch me in-game at Lockefox, on Twitter at HLibIndustry. I encourage you all to catch the Hydrostatic podcast. I don't think we'll have any shows in December, but we did have a big lore show a couple of weeks back and have put out a bunch of lore blogs on the blog at hydrostaticpodcast.com. Be sure to tell all your friends to tune in, and we'll be back next week with more stuff, more data, more graphs, and Thanks again for tuning in.